Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today we are starting a reading vlog, but a very particular kind of reading vlog, and that is I have a bunch of first volumes for manga series, and I just feel like it's time that I smash through these first volumes and figure out if these are series that I want to get invested in, if I want to continue with, if I want to buy future volumes. This has been brought on by the fact that at work I started reading Hat Atelier, the first volume, and I'm really liking it so far. I was about halfway through by the end of my shift, so I ended up picking it up. But then I realized that, you know, I've already got quite a few volume ones of different series, and I feel like I just want to figure out which series are like actually for me, like which ones do I really actually want to continue with, maybe even collect. And then these are the other first volumes of a variety of different series that I currently own, and many of these I've owned for quite a while. First up, we've got an Inio Asano. It's Dead Demons Destruction. That title is going to trip me up every time I say it in this video, let's be real. I have actually read a few Inio Asano works before. I've read the entirety of Goodnight Punpun. I loved that series. I've also read Downfall and Girl on a Shore, so I was very intrigued by this. I think it's about an alien invasion, but we will find out together. Then I've got the much beloved shoujo Fruits Basket. I've heard so many good things about this. Then we've got the absolutely beautiful but very expensive Bride Story. The art in this, I've had a bit of a flick through, looks gorgeous, and I've heard really, really good things about this sort of historical fiction romance, I think. Then we've got Dreamin Sun, which I think is by the same mangaka who did Orange. I think this one has a bit less time travel, but plenty of romance. So could be cute, could be cute. Then a series that has come highly recommended to me, it's Nana. I don't really know anything about this, and every time I look at this cover I think it's going to be more like of a thriller, but I think it's more just like slice of life young adult with a bit of romance, I think. And then I picked up a little while ago, I think this is Maison Ikkoku. This looked really cute and I really liked the art, and sometimes I buy books for no other reason. And then I do actually have the entire series already. I bought the box set when I was first kind of getting really into manga. I've done a whole vlog of me sort of like getting into manga for the first time. I think that's over on my other channel. But I bought this whole box set for A Silent Voice. And I think this is about a deaf girl and her bully. So this is also something that I want to like finally get to and see if I like. And my main goal here is to read these first volumes of these series that I've got and to make the decision about whether I want to keep the series, whether I want to continue with the series. So I want to read them, figure out whether I like them, whether I'm interested enough to continue or not. So that's the goal. That's what we're doing. Let's get to reading. So I've been reading all morning and I'm having quite a good time. I finished Hat Atelier and I really liked this. This was really fun. It's about a young girl called Coco who lives at home with her mother. And it seems like they're both seamstresses, or, you know, they work with fabrics and making stuff. And Coco's really, really good at it, but she's always dreamed of being a witch. And in this world, Coco believes that witches have to be born. You know, you can't just become one. And she's, you know, old enough to realize now that she hasn't been born with magic. However, when she was younger, she was given a witch's book and a special pen, and she pores over it all the time because she's kind of obsessed, but she doesn't believe that she can ever use the magic, and she doesn't understand the book, so it's just sort of like this curiosity that she has that she's kind of obsessed with. And then one day some people come to town and some stuff happens, and an actual witch ends up having to do some magic, and Coco sees how they do it. And how magic is done is by drawing particular sigils and patterns. And so Coco realizes then that maybe all she needed was the book and the pen that she was given. Maybe they are magical tools. And she tries to draw one of the patterns, one of the sigils in the book. And amazingly, it works. The magic does work. However, they have quite dire consequences. It destroys her home and turns her mother into stone. And so the witch from earlier in the story kind of comes and rescues Coco, realizing that she must have had access to some kind of information that she's not really supposed to have access to. So he takes her back to his atelier and decides to make her an apprentice. Anyway, I won't tell you any more. That's sort of like the setup, so a good like chunk of this first volume. But I really liked it, and it did end on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I absolutely want to pick up number 2. And the art in this is just really, really beautiful. It's detailed, but still just really, really pretty, and I really like the character of Coco. She's sort of one of those unlikely heroes, but someone who has a big heart, and also quite a lot of tenacity, and maybe doesn't believe in herself as much as she should, that sort of stuff. Like, she's quite charming. I also read Dead Demons Dededede Destruction. Was that the right amount of des? This title though, can we just call it Dead Demons? I'm just gonna call it Dead Demons. So as I mentioned, I have read quite a bit of Inio Asano. I would sum up my experience with Inio Asano as like almost reluctantly loving him. Sometimes like the morals and his morals just feel a bit too grey for me, and that makes me a bit uncomfortable, but I also think that's kind of what he wants. And his art is incredible. I love his storytelling. And I really enjoyed this. Basically, the story is set 3 years after an alien invasion. There's a massive spaceship sort of just hanging over Tokyo. And the story follows 2 young girls who are very removed from the crisis. Like, they're just trying to live their everyday lives of going to school, doing homework, having crushes, all of that sort of stuff, to the backdrop of Tokyo being in this weird sort of stalemate with a giant mothership hanging over them. Like, it's just strange. I really like both of the friends and their dynamic. I think Inio Asano does such a good job of writing young people, and just like their interactions and their characters come across really strongly right from the get-go. Of course, his art and the way that he details especially urban environments and expressions and emotions is always incredible. And I think there's something especially poignant about reading this now, at least for me, given that we're like, you know, in year 3 of the pandemic at this point. You know, this existential external threat that is impacting all of our lives a lot, but most of us aren't on the front lines, aren't, you know, at the center of the response. Most of us are on the outskirts where our lives have been impacted, some much more than others. But at the same time, we're all sort of just trying to get on with life. I think he started writing this well before the pandemic, but I suppose just like retrospectively adding that extra layer on is really interesting to me. So essentially, this is a slice of life story so far about 2 high school girls just living their life 3 years after an alien invasion that hasn't really ended. So it's not super action heavy, super plot heavy, like it really is about these 2 characters and just like people and their response to this existential external threat. And I do really like the way that this starts 3 years after the invasion, when there's this sort of stalemate and nobody really knows what's happening or when it's going to end. I think that's a really interesting lens rather than doing this big action-packed sequence of the invasion occurring. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed this, although having read enough of Inio Asano, I don't trust him not to break these characters and me in the process. Like, I have a sense that this is going to get darker and darker because everything I've ever read by Inio Asano gets darker and darker. But I'm already invested, and I have ordered more volumes, and I can't wait to get stuck in. And then I've also started volume 1 of Fruits Basket. This has been on my shelf for like a year, and I think the reason I never picked it up is because I bought the entire series of Princess Jellyfish. I was convinced I was going to love that, and I hated it right from the beginning. It just felt very dated, and I didn't like it. And I don't know why, but in my head I'd sort of connected the 2, Fruits Basket and Princess Jellyfish. I'd sort of confused them and almost thought they were the same thing or similar. But I've started this and I really like it so far. I won't say I'm loving it. It's very simple, even though it has quite a weird, weird premise. It's a lot more slice of life than I was expecting. Basically, this is the story of Toru, who is a young girl. I think she's in high school, maybe middle school. And she's an orphan. Her mother died and she's been living with her grandfather. But her grandfather has to move out of his house for a little while to have renovations happen so that the rest of his family can move in. And so he asks her if she has anywhere else she can stay. Like, can she stay with a friend for a few months while the renovations happen? And Toru is a girl who just really, she's very optimistic, very hopeful, very bubbly, but she's also almost pathologically terrified of being a burden on anyone. So she tells her grandfather that she will go stay with some friends, but instead of doing that, she buys a tent on sale and like lives in the woods. And she's quite cheery about it. She figures it will be a character building exercise. But what she does not know is that she's actually camping on the property of the Soma family. And they end up sort of finding out that she's camping there, and they offer her a room to sort of stay in while the renovations are happening. But in the process, she also discovers that this family has a secret. When they're hugged by a member of the opposite sex, or particularly stressed or whatever, they magically transform into one of the animals of the Chinese zodiac. What? And I remember hearing about this element, and I think I sort of dismissed this as some weird furry book. It's not. It is more of like a comedic element of the book, but it also introduces us to like the fact that this Soma family has a lot of secrets and it's quite mysterious. So there's comedic elements. It sort of feels like a bit of romance might be setting up, but even that doesn't feel like overt or particularly strong. It feels much more slice of life and simple, even though there's this weird stuff going on. And so far, I really like all the characters. And so I'm about halfway through and I'm going to keep going. I like it a lot so far. Hello, I'm here just sort of getting ready for work, having a cup of tea. So we're just on my phone today. I hope the audio and everything's okay. Just wanted to do a bit of an update and a check-in. Firstly, I have picked up the next 4 volumes of Dededede and the next 2 of Hat Atelier. We had these at work, like I could get them very easily and affordably, so it was an easy choice and I'm excited to get stuck into them. I have also finished Fruits Basket and I have been on an emotional journey with this one. So when I checked in with you, I think I was sort of feeling like I was enjoying it, but I wasn't loving it. The last 30 pages or so of this volume though really won me over and I was left feeling quite emotional as well as emotionally invested, both in the characters, but also, I don't know, it's like we got a little peek behind the veil into just how complex and mysterious in particular the Soma family is. So then I went to sleep and then I dreamt about this thing and I woke up and I don't know what happened. This book has put a curse on me, but I am now obsessed. And I was desperate to get my hands on the rest of the series. So I have ordered as many volumes as I'm able to, but there is a bit of a manga shortage at the moment, as a lot of you will know. And one of the volumes, volume 7, seems to just be out of stock literally worldwide. In the meantime though, Blair has very kindly found the anime, so we're watching the anime together now. So I am getting my Fruits Basket fill while I'm waiting for the other volumes to come in. And it's just so damn charming. It's so beautiful. I love how there are comedic elements, there are like hints at romance, but really this feels like more slice of life family drama. And it's just really interesting watching the relationships between Toru and the Soma family sort of develop. So I'm basically just desperate to learn more about every single character that we've been introduced to so far. And I'm so interested in learning more about the Soma family and this curse. They keep calling it a curse, how they transform into the animals of the zodiac. And I don't know if Fruits Basket has now spoiled me for other manga, but I have actually just recently DNF'd a couple of volumes. The first was Dreamin Sun. I started reading this and I don't know, it just felt quite cliche and a bit boring. I don't know, I just wasn't into it. I really enjoyed a lot about Orange, particularly the characters. They captivated me immediately. Whereas with this, I'm not enjoying the setup. The characters just sort of feel quite one note. I'm sure it does develop into something more interesting. I suppose I want to read Fruits Basket more. And I don't care enough about this to keep going. And then Nana. I have heard incredible things about Nana and I almost don't want to get invested because there seems like there's a lot of volumes of Nana currently available. Some of them are hard to get. Again, with the manga shortage, they're like sort of out of stock at the moment. I don't think they're out of print permanently, but they're certainly out of stock. But I guess I just was thinking about how difficult it's been to get the other volumes of Fruits Basket and how expensive it's been. And I don't know that I want to get invested in a story like this. I have heard the anime's quite good, so I'm thinking maybe this is better consumed via anime for me. Next up, I read Maison Ikkoku. I really had mixed feelings about this. I love this cover. I mean, honestly, I picked this up primarily because of the cover. I just think it's gorgeous. This was originally published in the 80s in Japan, so it definitely does have a bit of a dated feel. And the reason I feel conflicted about it is because it's very slice of life. Basically, Kyoku is the girl in the front. She is a young woman who moves into this sort of boarding house and she's the new resident manager. Godai is the other sort of main character. He is just a bit of an idiot. He's been struggling to get into university, like passing his exams, not because he isn't capable of it, but because he just doesn't care about anything enough to try hard enough, and he's always finding excuses, and he's a bit of a no-hoper kind of guy, it seems. But as soon as Kyoko turns up, Godai is just sort of obsessed with her. He's infatuated, she's gorgeous, he's in love. But for me, a lot of the humor is just sexism and objectification played off as gags. So I don't love that. And I suppose that is where this book comes across feeling very dated. But what absolutely captivated me about this was the character of Kyoko. And people are always asking her if she's single, if she's dating, and she's quite vague about all of that. And about halfway through the volume, we find out that she's actually a widow. She was married to 6 months to a man that I think she really, really loved, and he died. So I think her reluctance to jump into the dating world with the many suitors around her is as much to do with the fact that they're a bunch of dickheads as it is to do with the fact that she's still grieving. Anyway, I just find her so compelling. And so even though I don't love all the humour, I do think I want to read volume 2. I want to continue with this series, but I think this will be one that I just do sort of like volume at a time and take it steady, because it could kind of go either way for me. Then I also have finished A Bride's Story, and this is another one I have complicated feelings about. So I suppose there's some comparisons between Maison Ikkoku and this one, in that they're both by female mangakas, both published in magazines for male demographics. And I think the main characters are women. But I had a bit of a different response to this one. I will start with the positives and say that this art is just as good, if not better, than everybody says. I hear people raving about this artwork all the time, and it is all true. The level of detail in the clothing, in the animals, in the setting, in like the buildings, is just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it in a manga. I also really enjoy the slice of life historical setting. This is set in 1800s Central Asia. And right at the beginning, we're introduced to our two main characters who have just been married. It's an arranged marriage by their families. The main character is a 20-year-old woman, and her husband is a 12-year-old boy. I did know that going in, but I'd heard such good things about this manga, and so many people sort of saying that it was handled really well and that it's historically accurate and all of that sort of stuff. And yes, as everyone says, their relationship is not sexual yet. I don't know if or when it will become sexual, but there are a few scenes and a few moments where I felt uncomfortable. I guess I can't get my head around the fact that even if they don't have sex until he's 25, it's still grooming then. Even if they do wait until he's old enough, whatever that means, he's 12 now. He's in this situation and he's 12 now. And I do appreciate and I understand that this is an arranged marriage. Like, I mean, Amir has basically been sold off by her family for political and monetary gain. Neither of them chose this. They're making the best of it, and they do seem to quite like each other. I, as a modern day reader, just feel a bit uncomfortable. And I suppose it comes down to the fact that everything else about this is so romanticized. Like, everyone's so lovely and everyone adores each other and it's all just fluffy rainbows. But the thing you decided to keep historically accurate is a massive age gap. I don't know, like that just doesn't feel quite right to me. And then the last volume that I've read is A Silent Voice. So I've just read the first one. Like I said, I actually do already own the entire series. I got the little box set because it was on sale and I just figured why not? I'd heard rave reviews about this one when I first picked this up. And essentially we're introduced to these two main characters. Shoyo is the school rebel. He's a bit of a bad boy. He hates boredom. He's always looking to get up to mischief and get himself in trouble because he hates being bored. And our story sort of starts when Shoko transfers to this school. She's transferred from her last school because she was so badly bullied. She's deaf and she's just had a hard time with kids accepting her. And Shoya immediately sort of takes a disliking to her and starts picking on her. It starts kind of pretty small. And then, you know, some people think he's a bit mean, but others sort of join in. And the longer she is there, the less generous people are with sort of, you know, going out of the way to help her or just taking a bit of extra time to communicate with her. So more people participate in the bullying, or at least complicit in his bullying. And it gets so bad that eventually she has to transfer away from this school too. After this incident, everybody sort of turns on Shoya, and like it's easy to place blame on him as being the reason that Shoko had to leave, but you know, it wasn't just him, but he sort of becomes the scapegoat, I suppose. And he ends up being very isolated and losing his friends. And that's sort of the backstory or the setup for the rest of the series. And then we jump forward in time 3 years later. And Shoya is trying to find Shoko so he can talk to her and ask for her forgiveness. Like, I am absolutely here to continue this series. Like, I think this is going to be really powerful. And I have heard that it's a really incredible exploration of bullying and sort of what it does to both the bullied and the bullier. Which I think is a really valuable conversation to have. I hope that it tackles it sensitively. So far, I think it's doing a pretty good job. Okay, Okay, so we have finished this manga reading vlog and we read 8 manga volumes together this week. And so as you know, the 3 volumes that I've decided not to continue with, at least for now, are Dreamin Sun. Dreamin Sun is probably the one that I have the least reservations about DNFing, I suppose. It's cute, but it didn't really do anything for me, so it just doesn't make sense to continue with the series. Nana is a little bit more painful to accept that I won't be reading or continuing or collecting this series. I think this reading vlog has been very helpful for me, not only in just like pushing me to get through some of the volumes that I've been collecting on my shelf over the last year, but also of figuring out what it is that I'm actually looking for when I'm starting and potentially considering collecting a series. And I think really having a strong realization of just how many volumes I would have to track down and collect and read and how much money and time investment that would involve for Nana, I guess I realized for the first time that that's not really what I want from my manga and my manga collection. And I think going forward, I will be a lot more cautious about picking up first volumes for series that are longer than, say, 15, maybe 20 volumes, depending on how they're available in Australia and in English. And then A Bride Story. Obviously, I've already spoken at length about my complicated feelings around this manga. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to get rid of this volume, partly because, as I mentioned, it's so damn beautiful. And I do feel like this is something that I'm going to want to just pull out to sometimes just look at it, just pore over it. It really is that pretty. And this experience has also got me thinking about 2 other first volumes of a couple of series that I've had on my shelf for a little while, and I have actually read both of these. I think I read them last year. Astra Lost in Space, I read this first volume last year, and I loved it. It's super fun, super playful. It's basically the story of 5, I think, young people who in the year 2063 end up getting stranded on a planet, and they sort of have to figure out a way home. It's very short, it's only 5 volumes, and it is complete, so that is something that definitely does appeal to me. Also, it is something that I could get in store, and with my, staff discount, it actually wouldn't cost all that much. But I guess the more I think about it, even though I really, really enjoyed this, no part of me feels the need to continue. Like, I had so much fun reading this, but I'm not like, oh, desperate to pick up the next one. And that is very much evidenced by the fact that this first volume has been sitting all by its lonesome on my shelf for over a year. And then the other one is A Man and His Cat. This is stupid cute. It's about this elderly man who lives alone, who ends up adopting an ugly cat that nobody wants, and they just sort of complete each other. It's gorgeous, and part of me does want to continue with the series because I enjoyed this volume so much, but at the same time I'm not really sure how much more we're going to get. Outside of just more cute stuff, are we actually going to get a whole lot more character development, story development, or is it just going to be more of the same? And that's not to say there's anything wrong with that. It's just, I guess I'm sort of accepting that for these 2, I'm happy having had the experience of the first volume, and I don't think I need the experience of the entire series. I loved both of these, I really genuinely did, but I also don't feel some desperate need to spend more time and money in these stories. I kind of feel like I'm done. And so I suppose this experience with this vlog has helped me better understand my experience of these 2. Just because I loved these doesn't mean that I have to pick up volume 2 and 3 and however many more. I can just love a single volume, and sometimes that's enough. Enjoying a volume is not the only reason to continue with a series, I guess is what I'm saying. And it sounds obvious now that I say it out loud, but that is something that I just really had a light bulb moment with during this experience. And honestly, I kind of wish I'd had that realization sooner, because I'm not entirely sure if I would have continued on with Hat Atelier had I had that realization before picking up volumes 2 and 3, because this is one that I really loved. I think it's a great setup, it's super fun, the art's incredible, it's very playful. It sort of feels like Harry Potter meets Ghibli, like those are the vibes. And those are strong, solid vibes, it's really good. But just in terms of the other series that I have decided to continue on with, I do not feel as excited to continue reading this story as I do those. Then Maison Ikkoku, this one, again, I have complicated feelings about, but I'm invested enough in Kyoko to want to continue. This is very easy to read though. It is very, very slice of life, and it's just really a bunch of characters figuring life out and living life. And processing different emotions around romance and grief. Then of course, A Silent Voice, which I do already have the entire series for, so I don't have to worry too much about that monetary investment. But it did definitely capture me. I think this is going to be a very powerful story, and I certainly am interested in continuing. And then of course, Dededede's Dededede Destruction. Is that the right number of Ds? Am I ever going to get the right number of Ds? I'm not sure. But I think this was such a good setup, and having had the experience of reading Inio Asano before and just knowing how well he moves characters along and how character driven his stories are and how well he wraps those up. And I have to admit that a big part of my excitement for this series is my prior experience with Inio Asano. I do really like this setup. I do think it's really cool, like the alien invasion 3 years on and 2 high school girls just sort of like trying to get on with life. This has been upside down the entire time, hasn't it? And then of course Fruits Basket, which I'm obsessed with. I'm really enjoying the anime, but I really, really want to read the rest of the manga. Volume 2 has just arrived. I'm still waiting on Volume 3, a lot of them on back order. Volume 7 is still nowhere to be found, but I am just really into this story and into Toru and into the Soma family. I'm just keen. I'm keen to continue on with this journey with them. I did also have a handful of other first volumes for series that I've been interested in reading arrive lately, so I may do another one of these vlogs quite soon. I'm just in a bit of a manga mood, what can I say? I would love to hear in the comments below if you've read any of the series that I spoke about in this video. Let me know what you think of them, especially volumes like Bride's Story. Is that a series that I should reconsider? Should I try 1 or 2 more volumes before I make my decision? Or Maison Ikkoku. Has anyone had a good experience with that one? Let me know how, especially the romance develops. Does it get less sexist? That's what I need to know. Anyway, thanks so much for hanging out with me and chatting manga all week long. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will talk to you in the comments below and in the next video. And until then, happy reading and so much love. Bye.